Is organ donation valuable to Americans? Today, this question will be addressed by Sebastian Gutierrez, Amanda Izquierdo, Alec Gonzalez, and myself, Isaiah Myers. Next. So in short, organ donation can be considered valuable to Americans. Next. So organ donation is actually agreed by with most adults in the United States of America. However, if you refer to the pie chart below, you can see that in the light area, 42.5% actually aren't organ donors, while in the dark region, 57.5% are not organ donors. Next. And the result of that is people are actually waiting for organ donations, and on average, it takes about 3 to 5 years or more for organs to actually be donated to individuals. Next. So as you can see in these different charts, here's are some stats or just information on how long or amounts of times in different ranges of ages for individuals with waiting for organs. So as you can see in the top left corner, someone waiting for a kidney, there's around almost 100,000 people waiting for a kidney in the year 2019. And if you see the liver in the top right corner, 239 days is the amount of time someone's waiting. And for the kidney, 679 days. And mind you, those numbers could actually be longer than that. Those are just average wait times. Next. So organ donation is actually in a shortage because the demand is way higher than the amount of people actually donating. Like I said earlier, people are there's a mistrust that they have with the system, so they're not donating. Next. So as time progresses, these transplantations are actually going to increase because of the lesser demand that they have with the organ donations. So a heart is already valued at 1.4 million, and a kidney may be worth at 415,000, and the cornea 30,000. But those prices are expected to increase with the demand. And ultimately, these are vital organs. These are a necessity for life, and that's why they're so valuable to individuals. But they're going to increase because there are not as many people that are donating their organs. Next.
Different forms of organ procurement exist around the world. Here in the United States, we rely on altruistic systems, both for living and dead donors. Altruistic systems imply that the donation is being done out of a selfless act in order to benefit the recipient. To the right is a poster promoting organ donation in the United States and the impact it can have and how to register if you are interested. This contrasts other systems around the world, such as presumed consent systems, where the donor is presumed to be inscribed unless indicated otherwise. Next. The map displays all the countries which currently have presumed consent systems. Although they have not been shown to greatly diminish the demand felt worldwide, they can help the demand. In countries such as Austria, the rate of donation has quadrupled, and although it has not completely gotten rid of the demand for organs, it has decreased the demand in countries with these systems. Next. The inherent value of organ donation should not be debated. Instead, the United States' system should be reformed to make organ donation, which is valuable to many, accessible and effective. Organ donation from living or dead donors has a potential to save many lives, up to 8, as different organs can be donated to different people in need. But currently, these donors must be willing to give up their bodily autonomy, which seems intimidating. If the system was designed around opting out instead of in, the demand for organs would go down, and we should not object to a valuable act becoming more accessible. Next.
Live organ donation is beneficial for Americans. Initially, donation candidates are analyzed by the transplant center which they intend to donate. Tests ensure that no damage will occur as a result of the donation process. Normally, donors are between the ages of 18 and 60, and are tested for having previously have or currently having certain medical conditions. The next step is to test the blood type of both the donor and the receiver. If the blood types do not match, additional steps are taken. If a donor is eligible, they must consent and conduct a final review in which they are informed of all aspects of the potential results of organ donation. The thoroughness of the live organ donation procedure allows for a live organ donor to comfortably make the decision to save another person's life without fearing for their own. Furthermore, post-death organ donation is valuable to Americans. After doctors have done everything possible to save a patient's life, they are tested for brain death. Brain death is irreversible, and it's at this point that organ donation can occur. A local organ procurement organization is notified of each patient that is nearing death and is sent information about them to identify if they can become a donor. It's at this point where a large difference in organ donation after death and live organ donation occurs. In live organ donation, the donor and receiver would go to the same hospital and the transplant would occur. In the case of after-death organ donation, a computer system takes into account medical stability and distance in order to find an appropriate receiver. After an appropriate receiver is determined, the organs of the donor are transported, and once they arrive at the hospital, the transplant occurs. This care for both the donors and the receivers in organ donation makes it valuable to Americans. Lastly, some health risks come with donation of organs. There are scenarios where the risks are unknown and where it is low. Kidney donation is the most widely researched type of organ donation, having 50 years of follow-up information. Other types of donation do not have as much data, such as liver donation. The reason for this is because it was introduced more recently. One risk, which applies to all types of donors, is the experience of a major surgical procedure. As with any surgery, the patient could be subject to unforeseen complications or issues that lead to additional recovery time. Despite risks on owners imposed through organ donation, the availability of information and the large data on certain procedures, as well as the collection of new data, makes organ donation valuable to Americans.
Additionally, organ donation can be valuable to Americans because the system itself strives to be ethical. Next slide. In this sense, ethics need to be defined, and they can be defined as the moral principles that govern the conduction of an activity, this activity being the running and organization of the organ donation system. What moral principles does this system run on? It runs on the principles of health maximization and respect for autonomy. Next slide. Some context beforehand, the organ donation system is a government nonprofit program. So in this sense, it does not focus on profits, but it focuses instead on maximizing health for both the organ donor and the receiver. Next slide. In this sense, the organ donation system uses and runs on these moral principles in the following three areas: safety developments, incentives, and choice. Next slide. In the area of safety developments, it runs on the principle of health maximization. With over 152 years of development, organ donation has turned from being an experimental, untested treatment to an actual effective medical intervention. And with this, the mortality rate for organ donation has decreased steadily over those 152 years. Next slide. Additionally, incentives are provided to maximize health with the goal of bringing more potential organ donors because, as stated previously, the gap between the people who actually wait for organs and the people who actually receive organs is very big. It's about 30,000 to 100,000 people. It's not a very sustainable gap. Additionally, because of this, the system is designed so the receiver pays, but it doesn't punish the receiver. Actually, the receiver pays through Medicare, health insurance, or Medicaid, because if the organ donor pays, then there will be less organ donors interested. Next slide. Additionally, to help maximization, respect for autonomy is run and present in the current organ donation system. With the current organ donation system, choice is very present because it does not force the donor to actually be part of the organ donation system. It's a matter of choice, either through altruistic motivations or other motivations. And as presented by Amanda, the presumed consent method that could be implemented in the future also provides the respect for autonomy, because even though by default you are placed in as an organ donor, you can always opt out. And based on these perspectives and reasonings, it can be noted that organ donation can be and should be considered valuable to all Americans.
Do you have questions for us, Mr. Beard?
Yeah, I do have a question for all of you. Sorry, I'm having user error on tech, but it's user error. It's all me. Go ahead, and whoever's sharing the screen, go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Amanda, you're going to have the first question. Amanda, if you would describe how the content of your presentation changed as a result of your conversations.
I would say, well, we first off decided what order we were going to like present in our information. So since Alec also talked about the presumed consent system, like he would go after me since he also mentioned it. And also we took in consideration like what we had learned like from each other. So from Sebastian's like paper and stuff, like I took into consideration that not necessarily all organ donation is medical. Like you could have your body like donated to science and it could be like a type of organ donation, and I hadn't considered that. And although it wasn't like what his paper was about, since I read his paper, I started to think about that, and I hadn't thought about it before. So from like conversations and reading their papers, I thought more about things. And
Okay. All right. Thank you. Alec, you're up next. In the future, what change would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect that to improve your presentation?
Well, the main change that I want to implement is being more efficient. This being because we as a group, we did our work, but it took us a very long time, and I felt like we had a lot of wasted time. As an example, a couple of weeks ago, we did a practice run, and our Zoom meeting lasted from 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. So it lasted quite a long time. I want to be more efficient. I want to do all the work, the same amount of quality, but with less time. I don't want to waste time on doing other stuff or waiting that much.
All right. Thank you. Sebastian. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of this topic?
I would say Amanda's argument had the most impact, because generally when I was thinking about organ donation, like going into it, I was thinking about positives and how we could talk about how it happens and if the procedures are safe, perception on it, but I didn't really have an idea of what exactly could be negative about it. And her argument talks about like the different systems versus altruistic versus opting out. And some of those definitely could be considered negative if it takes away like individual autonomy or things like that. So I didn't really take into consideration the system of it. I looked more at like the procedure individually. I didn't have as broad of a scope and how that could be negative.
All right, thank you. Obviously, then Isaiah, you're up last. How did you improve your ability to work with a group as a result of this project?
Well, with this project, as you know, there's COVID, so it's kind of harder to interact with each other, like not like when it's not in person. So you just had to overall just kind of sharpen our communication skills and try to communicate as much as we could and interact through like Hangouts or Zoom. We just do what we could as far as trying to make sure that everything was clear to each other and just communicate. The big word is communicate, because communication with this is ultimately the best thing that we could have done and that we can do with these types of group projects, because we all need to understand each other to succeed.
All right, thank